Okay, we are live. This is Launch One with Mason Springer. I'm Mason Springer. Today, our guest is Cody Griffin. Cody represents one of the most American brands in archery, Easton Archery. Cody's got a big beard. He's a bow hunter, all around awesome guy. They say you can always trust a man with a beard. Is that true, Cody?
I sure hope so. I
Yeah.
sure hope so.
Yeah. How you been out there?
Yeah.
You're in Utah, right?
Yeah, man, it's great. It's great. We got some much needed rain. There was a little fire that happened and the fire department apparently couldn't get to it. So now good Lord brought us some rain. So it's been raining all day, man.
Yeah.
How about yourself? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been shooting a lot. I guess I always shoot a lot. Bow season just started. I've been hunting a good bit, putting every minute I can into the stand. But yeah, I think it's a good time of year. With the rain here in Ohio, it's been a pretty dry summer. We got a little bit of rain here a couple weeks ago, just really enough to wet the ground, but that's about it. On the fires you're talking about, curious, how close is that to where you are?
Like I said, I think this one, if I'm not mistaken, I might have the headline wrong. I saw it in the news this morning, but it's in one of the canyons, probably about 45 minutes away from here. If ironically enough, the fire was so high, the fire department, local fire department, couldn't get there. But I think it was kind of in control in a sense. I don't think it was too large, but we've had quite a lot of fires here, man. There's been a lot down south. One of the units, in particular, a really solid mule deer unit, was affected, and that fire really started high, and it kind of just kept all the muleys down in the valley, not really running up the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually writing a paper for one of my classes about like wildfire control, doing prescribed fires versus thinning and I guess historically, wildfires used to happen a lot more frequently and then in recent years, the last 40, 60 years, something like that, there's been a lot more fire suppression, and that allows a lot more fuel and stuff to build up on the ground and in the forest. That way, when a fire does start, it's a lot more intense and harder to control, which sounds like the fire you're talking about wasn't too bad, but I know the last couple years there have been some bad fires.
Yeah, there have been, me being new out west, you don't really, on the East Coast, you don't really pay attention to it too much until it really happens in your backyard. Where I'm from, the Croatan National Forest actually caught fire a couple years back, and it burned several thousands, tens of thousands of acres, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
through there. So it's like, oh man, these things can come up out of nowhere. Oftentimes it's lightning strikes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Someone being dumb, throwing a cigarette out, whatever it might be, but often or
Yeah.
not, it's just a cause of nature.
Yeah. So where are you originally from?
North Carolina, a little town called Richland. So there's a bigger town that most people might know called Jacksonville, close to Wilmington, North Carolina. But I was a coastal kid, man. Grew up about 30 to 45 minutes away from the beach. And,
Yeah.
so that was my time, going out when I was younger, I'd go to the beach a lot. And then when I got older, it was more, baseball driven and, bow hunting and stuff like that.
Yeah. Would you play in baseball? Explain that to me.
So I played all the way up to my senior year in high school. I got hurt my senior year, so that kind of kept me from going anywhere to play college ball, and that's kind of where I excelled at was my senior year. Started throwing a lot harder, but I started out as a catcher and then got converted into a pitcher. Just wasn't good behind the plate, man. Wasn't fast enough to get around, balls in the dirt and stuff like that. I had a can. I had a pretty decent pop time. Could throw pretty decently hard, my junior year. In my senior year, that's kind of where I excelled. There were a couple guns on me. I'd hit some pretty decent numbers, but not good enough to go D1 or D2, just mainly like JUCO or something like that. But I got injured my senior year. That kind of put a standstill on, baseball and, kind of put a standstill on bow hunting actually too.
Yeah.
Kind of got out of it for quite a long time, 3 or 4 years. And then I picked it up again when I was 21 or 22 and got back into it full force, got into the target side of archery right around the same time frame. That's archery's just consumed me ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've had a couple buddies at school that play baseball and, every once in a while
There you
someone
go.
would get injured and then they got to pick up the crossbow for that hunting season and just stuff like that. Of course, crossbows are legal in Ohio, which I guess that's one of the advantages to them is if somebody gets injured or whatever, but
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's pretty controversial now, isn't it?
Yeah, crossbows are, I look at it like this. I want everyone that's able-bodied to experience shooting a compound bow or a recurve or traditional bow, whatever it might be. But I can't sit there and discourage anyone from picking up a crossbow either. I'd rather have someone overall out in the than be a keyboard warrior online or something like that, not be in
Yeah.
tune with God-given natures.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so Easton arrows. Let's talk
Yeah, man,
Easton.
for sure.
What's your arrow setup this season?
Oh man, I got a couple. Truthfully, man, I'm pretty blessed, to be in the spot I'm here at Easton. I get to play around with a lot of stuff. So I've got like some 5.0s that are set up, running in 50 grains of brass, and those with a match grade collar, or actually 75 grains of brass, match grade collar, 100 or 125 grain, point on the front, just kind of see what tunes the best out of it. And, if I want to hit a certain arrow weight, I can do that with point weight in it. Yeah. But it's a 340. I'm running, some AE hybrids, actually 23s, the four fletch and the Air Razor 23s are what they are. Really like that arrow setup, but man, my go-to has been the 5 mil axis. Like that is
Yeah.
I call it the 30-30 of the arrow world. You can take that thing anywhere and put anything down you want to with it, and it hits the specs I want to. I shoot a 340 out of that as well with an aluminum head, a match grade collar, a 100 grain point puts me at 420 grains, chopped at 27 inches, and that's where I like to float at. I like to float in that, lower 400 to mid to lower 400 to 450 is where I like to be.
Yeah.
Anything over that, I've got to be, I'm probably going after something much larger in game, but that's the tried and true, man. I built Parallel Pros. I played with them. Incredible arrow, 4 mil axis. Another great arrow. I've got some built with those, and that one I could run a little bit more point weight, like on the front with a 5.0 and still be under that 440 range.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm kind of a rookie compared to you as far as hunting and all this stuff, but my setup is a 5.0. I like lightweight. I like speed. Like the last couple years, I've been hunting with a setup that shoots like 270, which is way too slow for me. I'm
I got
not
you.
that good at judging yardage, so I need some speed. This arrow setup is somewhere around 350 grains, so pretty quick. I got
Wow.
some
It's
tip.
zippy.
Typically, I'm a Q2I guy, but I got some AAEs on here. They give out these things like for free at TAC. It says Total Archery
There you go.
Challenge on there, so I got like a ton of these things to use up, and they've been
Awesome.
working well. And then I
Yeah.
used to have fancy match grade points. I guess I still do, but I was playing around with some unique point weights here. So I'm running about 85 grains with 16 grain insert, but pretty
Whoa.
lightweight, I'd say.
That
But
is a fast setup.
yeah, and actually, my hunting bow is an old Matthews Monster. Dad and I both shoot one. It's an MR7, so 7-inch brace height,
Okay.
but we can still get some wicked speed out of there. I'm kind of
That's
a
got the ABS cams on it. I remember, playing around
yes,
with some of those back in the day. Yep.
yep, yeah. It's the draw's not smooth, I can tell you that, but it
It's
sure is
built for
fast.
speed, man. Yeah, it's built for speed.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm feeling pretty confident. I like my setup. I've been using just about the same thing for the last couple years, except for arrow. But yeah, it's good. I'm excited for this season.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. The 5.0's done extremely well, man. The dealer base and the customer base are extremely happy with it. We're able to make that here, in Salt Lake City, which is really cool to see it come out from literally a roll of carbon, like spindle fiber, and
Yeah,
come out into a tube like that. The consistency of it's what really, what I love about was that I have a process called AccuCarbon, and it's our marketing term for the ability to bring spindle fibers together in unison, so they're uniform when they come through a single die, single mandrel process. And what that does is it gives us consistent spine around shaft. So this arrow right here, I'm just going to use for example, consistent spine around shaft. So whenever we spin this arrow right here and we're flexing it and seeing what's going on, it says 340. It's going to hit 340 dang near at any virtual point on this shaft under load, how you would set spine. And then spine from arrow to arrow, that's also critical. Imagine buying a dozen arrows and, three or four of them aren't three truly 340s. They're three, 80s or, 400s or something like that.
yeah.
You want to have some consistency in that regard too. And same thing with weight. We're able to keep all the contributing factors that make a perfect arrow happen with AccuCarbon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the number one thing for me that sets Easton apart from all the different brands. I mean, you guys are the only ones that do that AccuCarbon. When I see that, when I see videos of that, it kind of reminds me of like paracord almost, like somebody weaving paracord in a perfectly,
That's a very good
continuous.
example.
Yeah, that's what I picture when I see videos, which I like to see it in person sometime. Here a couple years ago, we were out at Salt Lake for a tack shoot, and we got to tour the Hoyt factory. We'll come to find out, you
Yep.
guys are just right down the street.
quarter mile, man, if that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So sometime I'd like to come out there and see your guys' factory. I think that'd be
Yeah, we'll
cool.
make it special, man. We'll show you. And that's the thing here. So years ago, I took my first tour at Easton. My girlfriend, which is now my wife, we did like a cross country tour, and I wanted to see the factory. I wanted to see how these arrows were made in the U.S. Because you hear it all the time, but I want there's one thing, but seeing it's kind of a little bit different.
Definitely.
I wanted to do that, and I was able to, take my first tour. And they just started to show the carbon side about a year or two prior to me, with my first tour. So seeing it in person, like, and at the time I was working in retail, and dude, I was blown away. And we were already selling a gazillion what it felt like Easton arrows, but definitely felt like it helped, our confidence behind the counter. Seeing that and then trying to, reiterate that to the customer, like, man, this it's really happening. I'm seeing the
Yeah.
fiber, and then when you get internal, you realize a lot of this fiber is actually sourced here in America too. It's not a lot of, not hardly none of it's coming from overseas. So it's really cool to see the suppliers that we have. They're coming. Shoot, there's one here in Utah that we use. So it's super cool to see.
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing that I really kind of opened my eyes the last couple years is I've seen several different, mostly archery manufacturers, and been to the factories and stuff. And when you see those, people in there working, and you see the stuff coming on and going on right here, the old ladies in the back room assembling broadheads, whatever it might be, like you see that, and it's like, man, that's a real brand, real people. It's real stuff going on, and that it really
It brings some
uh,
sentiment, man. It
it
does.
does.
It definitely brings some sentiment. And I'll tell you what's crazy, man. Here, there are people that have been working longer than 4 decades at Easton. 40 years,
Wow.
longer than I've been alive. My boss, he's been here 31, 32 years. So I mean, he's literally a legend in the company. There's other, manufacturing legends down there. There's ladies that have literally touched every single X10 packaging, like packaging these air. She's done every single one. So every Olympic medal you can
Yeah.
tie directly back to her since 1996.
Yeah.
That is
That's really
incredible.
cool. That is incredible. Yeah, it's cool to hear the history like that. So when we were in Salt Lake, we stopped at Hoyt, and then we went down the street to the Easton Shooting Center. I'm not sure what the real name for it is, but I remember hearing about like a library or something like the history of archery. Is that something they have there?
Yes, it is, and you can tour that as well, and man, it's something you can't even describe it. You just gotta go do it and see it. I mean, it's insane, the artifacts and the books that are in there. Like, truthfully, you don't even wanna touch anything, and they have gloves you put on if you wanna, like, just look at something, and there's stuff behind, glass, and you can't look at or you can look at, but you can't touch. But that is something I just encourage everyone, if you're in the area, just go check that out. I don't think they're open on Mondays and Sundays, but I think Tuesday through Saturday. Now, if you go in there around afternoon, you could definitely, see if they'll let you up in the library. And it's insane, the
That's
history that's in there.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've been around, I'd say more old school archers, if that's what you want to call them, like the 90s, 80s, 90s era. Those
Nothing
guys,
wrong with that.
and yeah, I've heard all kinds of stuff, and you ask a lot of guys today, and they don't even know that compound bows used to be shot with fingers and a clicker and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that me being able to understand some of the original ways that they used to do things has definitely helped me structure some of my shot today. I think that
Oh, I
understanding that
believe it, man.
history is pretty important.
I'd love to see what they could have done with today's equipment. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you got Terry Ragsdale, just
Yes.
absolute icon. Michelle Ragsdale. I mean, Toby Ragsdale. Mike Leiter. Man, there's so many more. Chapel. I mean, there's so many, figureheads that are still, and they're still around. Some of them are, and still shooting stuff like that. But there's a lot of kids, and including people my age, in their 30s, that don't know who, those guys are, and they're icons, man.
Yeah.
Absolute industry jet setters.
I remember, so Dad's got some old, bow stuff still hanging around, and I'll set up, a old fingers bow from, probably the
You
90s,
can
I'd
say other
say.
than that, I'm just
And it'll be
it's a good
like
CC meter, then
43
my
inches
double
axle to
then.
axle or whatever, and I put a clicker on it, and I did all that stuff, and I thought, and I shot that bow, and really it was some great practice, being able to practice shooting that bow and, do that stuff. That was really cool. I was able to learn, the push pull and stuff with it really well. But yeah, I think that like Terry Ragsdale and those guys that are shooting 900s with, old equipment like that, when I tried out, I'm
Fuck
like
yeah.
all over the place. I can't do it. Those guys were really top notch.
No, man, and to see what they've been able to do, like I said, I'd just love to see what they could do with today's equipment. I mean, that's to take nothing away from the shooters today, because I think we're actually truly at another level of archery, meshing with the shooter and the equipment itself. I mean, look what Kim Woo Jin just did.
Yeah.
I mean, just set a new, qualification record and smoked it. Shot a 710, dude.
What's
Like
the
that is
Give me the details on
smoked
that.
it.
I heard that there was a new world record, but I don't know exactly what happened.
Yeah, let me double check. I just want to double check my is Kim Woo Jin shot a 7, I want to say it's a 10, 710.
And what was the previous record? It was like 02,
I think like
03, something like that.
703. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Let me
just smoked
see.
it. And this was so Kim Woo Jin, he's from Korea, right?
Yes.
And
Yep. Korean.
yeah, he if I remember correctly, this was at a Korean tournament.
Yes.
But yeah, that's really cool. I mean, crushing a record by 7 points is what I believe it was. That's insane. That's
709. That's what he shot. 709. I told you his
yeah.
story.
Wow.
Yeah. The previous record was 702. I
Okay.
mean, and that's, dude, anyone shooting truthfully in the recurve side of things, I mean, it's impressive when someone can go in there, and lay down 670s, 680s, 690s and 700s. Shooters had a good day, but a
Yeah.
709, dude, you're dang near flawless. I mean,
Yeah.
and that
I mean,
just with a recurve fingers, man, no magnification.
and it's I guess it's bound to happen at some point. Like if you can shoot 110 with a recurve bow, you can shoot, what is that,
All of them.
71 of them or whatever?
72. Yeah.
70. Yeah, you can I mean, you can shoot that many. It just takes a lot of reps and I mean
Yes,
a
it
lot
does.
of mental power and technique like yeah, those guys are another level. I know one thing that I learned from Brady Ellison, let's see, it was this winter. He's like, the number one thing with the mental game is you gotta like put a steel pan over your head. Like you can't let anything get in, whether you're shooting on a
Hmm.
stage or in the backyard, whatever it is, you can't let stuff
Yep.
get in there. Just like a steel cage around your head. And I
I
remember when
agree.
I was on the stage at Vegas, I was thinking of that. And sure enough, if you don't think about anything else but you and your bow,
Hmm.
things typically go well.
I agree. And correct me if I'm wrong. You shot a 300 this year in Vegas, right?
I did, yes,
Look
yeah,
at that. Yeah, dude. I just this year, past year was my first like Vegas tournament shooting, and oh man, I squawked the bird, dude. It was horrible. Yeah, I took a lot. I had so much fun. I took away a lot of good stuff. Honestly, it's what I needed. I wanted to get out there and get my feet wet, at like a international, tournament like that. And I had such a good time. I didn't shoot in a pro class. I'm not a professional by any means. I got so much crap to work on between my ears, and I probably bugged Joel Turner enough, and other people that
yeah,
I just got to work on me. But man, Brady's the epitome of the mental game. If you look at his track record, man, he's been one of the most consistent archers, in our lifetime with a recurve for sure. And he's got a pile of medals, 5 or 6 Olympic medals. Just won a silver individual and a bronze team, mixed team medal in
yeah,
Paris. And I mean, he's just an absolute unit. He's a super nice guy, man. I enjoy talking to Brady whenever I get the chance to, and he's pretty good to work with too.
yeah,
Anything I kind of ask of him, it gets done, and that's what you look for in a partner like Brady.
yeah, yeah. That's good. I know. Yeah, Vegas. I mean, that's a cool place to be. You get to meet all the different guys. You see everybody there. Like that's where, it seems like any show, big bow shoot, whatever it is, I always see you there. We always run into each other at those
I'm
different.
there a couple times a year.
Yep. Yeah, I know. PA TAC this summer, ATA show, Vegas. Just different stuff like that. It's
Yep,
always
yep.
it's always fun. Like once you come back a couple times, it's like you see all the same people. It's the same crowd. But yeah, I get to know
It's
everybody.
a little
It's
reunion. Yeah, you get a
yeah. I mean, I'd say Vegas. Yeah, there's tons of different people there. It's always fun to see the crowd. I think it's a good move when they combined the Rushmore Rumble and ATA show. You may have a different viewpoint on that, but I think that that'll
I
get a
think it's
lot.
gonna be, yeah, I think it's gonna be, I think it's a smart move. I mean, I don't have any say so in any of that stuff. I like it. I think hopefully it'll bring a bigger crowd. That's what I'd like to see. More people involved. And, I feel like that's the goal for, all the promoters from the ATA to Rushmore to just the industry itself.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that there should be more pros that come to the ATA. I know it's going to be a lot more convenient for me to hit the ATA and the Rushmore right there. I think
Hmm.
that's a good move on NFAA's part. But yeah, so I think this winter season is going to be really busy for me. I actually just shot my first scored round with the new Hoyt that I got, Concept X 37. And
Yep.
I just kind of been shooting old worn out Vegas faces just to get everything sighted in, and I was messing with the grip and just tuning it up a little bit. And last night I finally shot a scored round, and it was a 28X, and I'm like, I can't ask for any better off of a new setup like that I've never shot before. I'm feeling
It's
super
nice.
confident in that bow. Honestly, I was kind of skeptical. I've shot the exact same bow for the last like 2.5 years and haven't changed a thing. And I was a little bit worried switching into a new setup, but I'm really liking it.
I have one as well, man, and I like it. It's a fun shooting bow. It's what I mean by that is, there's some target bows that shoot really good, but they kind of beat you up in the process. There's a little bit more to them, as far as, of course, you got a lot less. Most of the time, people are holding more weight, so they have less let off. The draw curves are a little bit different. The valley might be a little bit shallower, so you're shooting what they might call a stronger shot, and really, you're just putting more effort, into the bow itself and into shooting. But this one's fun, the
Yeah,
the draw curve's nice and smooth, and you can really, play with that valley and get it where you like and play with the wall. If you wanna make it a harder wall or a softer, feeling wall, depending on how you execute a shot, you can do that with it, and, it's just insane how customizable these bows are. Hoyt's, got the whole grip system. You can change the draw length by, adjusting that brace height a little bit,
yeah,
just on the grip itself and the angle, so you can really play to your comfort, on that. And when you find a bow that shoots good, man, X-27s just shoot even better. Like, they
yeah.
just hit the middle more.
Yeah, yes. Well, back to the hard soft cams. Had shot a lot of the fingers and clickers and stuff, dad's old bows. And I mean, the valleys on those things were like, you'd get back there and it's like, spongy like this. And I switched my Concept X cam over to the soft mode, and I'm really liking that. I can just get a little bit. A little bit of give in the back wall, just enough that I can
Wow.
kind of creep back as I'm executing that shot. And
There you go.
I'm not a big guy on, it has to be a perfect pin hold and all this stuff, but I will say this
Mhm.
bow is holding
It's good.
definitely different than the other bow. It's definitely
Yeah.
different, and for right now I'm going to say it's better. But
There you go.
I'm to the point where I don't think pinhold makes a whole lot of difference as long as what's between your ears is all
Mhm.
right. Like I can shoot
Yep.
just about the same with my hunting bow, and it's the hunting bow's shaking like this. And I'm sure you've heard some of that stuff from Joel Turner and all those guys.
Big Joel Turner fan, man. That's the let the pen dance and get into your shots, get into that phrase that keeps you closed looped, So big Joel Turner fan. But no, I agree. The bow shoots good. Honestly, I've gotten along with, truthfully every wood I've ever shot, I've gotten along with. I've had some other target bows. I've had a Bowtech Reckoning. Really loved that bow, shot it really well. Some Matthews target bows I played around with. They shoot really well too. The concept, I just like the modularity of it. I like the fact that I can change the draw length, to a eighth of an inch adjustment if I want to, and change how the wall feels, and the grip angle if I want to play with it. And I just like modularity in a bow, and I think that Hoyt's a really good fit for me. And it's doing a lot of work on that podium too, man. I tell you what, it's World Championships just happened. Hoyt dominated. They crushed there as well. So it's one of the things is Easton. We've always done really well in the outdoor sector, and shoot, truthfully, we've always done really well in the indoor sector, as well. But like I said, finding a bow that shoots good, man, it just instills more confidence with the rest of the setup around it.
Yeah, absolutely. This indoor season, I'm running X27s, aluminums, 2712s. I mean, that has been probably, I'm going to say, the most successful arrow for indoor for the past, I mean, many years. Am I right there?
I would say so. As a company, I went and did some like track and like looking back and seeing how, well Easton's done the last like 5 or 6 years. And we've dang near taken every tournament, on the indoor side, with a couple exceptions. The like Lancaster last year, Jacob Slusar won there. So, but we took second and third in that, that podium to positioning. And of course, Kyle Douglas has got some Vadium or some Vegas podiums. And we've respectively, taken, second, third, and, some of those classes. And, even in the women's classes, we do really, really well. And overall, I think aluminum wins more than carbon, I would say for sure, when it comes to indoor. The reason why there's a lot of manufacturing that goes into that. Aluminum inherently is more consistent than carbon when it comes to, put it in when putting it into a tube-like shape, basically a cylinder.
Yeah.
The straightness of aluminum is incredible. And carbon, we make really, really good carbon arrows, and there's a lot of people that make really good carbon arrows. But from a manufacturing and material standpoint, aluminum's kind of king for that 20-yard game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I picture aluminum versus carbon. Carbon's fibrous, right? I picture like a tree trunk. You go to Home Depot and you're buying a 2x4. Well, there's not one that's going to be perfectly straight. It's a bunch of fibers, that have been bonded together, and you can get them pretty straight, but you're never going to find a perfect 2x4. But then you go
Gotcha.
over to
Yeah.
the metal section at Home Depot, and you're looking at tubing or whatever it is down there, and most of the time it's pretty dang
Yep.
straight. But that's kind of how I
Yep.
look at arrows. Aluminum's going to be more
Yeah.
easier to manufacture, looking at it from that standpoint. And then of course there are advantages to carbon, like weight to strength to weight ratio and all that. But so what about setup for aluminums? I historically I have run programs like Archer's Advantage to get my arrows the right spine, right? And
Yeah.
that does not work with 2712 just because they're so stiff. Now, in a lot of arrows, I guess there's a forgiveness to stiffness ratio, and I don't know if it's a formula or whatever it is, but I know on a lot of my arrow setups, according to Archer's Advantage, I'll build something that is optimum spine, right? And that typically matches like Easton Arrow charts or whatever it is. And then I'll build that setup, and it tends to be pretty forgiving. Most of the time, those spine charts are right on the money or whatever it is. And then you go to large diameter arrows that are very stiff, and you can still get, awesome levels of forgiveness. I know this is not necessarily a black and white, there's one right answer, but what have you found across all your different guys that that shoot arrows? Like, what is a setup that is typically forgiving, and what's a setup that's not forgiving? And I guess, what does forgiving even mean?
We'll go over that last term. I think forgiveness just means what hits the middle the most, you know, whether you have a good shot or a bad shot. That's my ultimate definition of forgiveness. What's going to hit the middle the most? Now with X27s, I've left them long and I've cut them short. What I think the length ratio and the point weight ratio is where that forgiveness can kind of come into play. Right now, I've got some built that are about 29 inches from end to end or aluminum to aluminum, without the bushing included in there. And I have like 270 or 275 grains in the front, and they shoot really, really good. And then there's others who suggest leave them long, 31 inches, 250 grains up front. That work really well. I think overall aluminum is something you just have to play with. I think it depends on from bow to bow, these different cam systems. And what I mean by, or not even systems, just these different cams, the way they're made in the sense of the way the draw force curve plays in the role into, that forgiveness factor ultimately says a lot. If it's a harder feeling cam or a softer feeling cam, those are going to kind of vary on, where you want to play at. For sevens, I've never really played with it on Archer's Advantage or anything like that. I've kind of just gone by feel.
Yeah.
And one thing I did that I wouldn't recommend, I don't really want to recommend this to anybody. It's just something that happened to work for me. Is I found where the node of the arrow sits on the rest, and I chopped it to that. So like I found the node in the arrow. So let's say if what that is, it's kind of like a vibration point of where the arrow basically dissipates the vibration through the front end of it. So there's no movement in it. And I shoot a blade rest for indoor. So I wanted to see if there was a forgiveness, if there was something there. And I'm not going to say there was because I don't do enough testing. I'm not an engineer to even qualify what kind of testing needs to be done with it, but all I did was I loaded up 250 or 275 grains in the front of it, and I marked where my arrow rests, where the arrow sits on the blade, on the arrow. So imagine I've got my arrow right here, full length arrow, you got point weight. Let's say my rest sits right here. What I would do next is I would put this right here on the edge of an object, and I would just pluck the string and see what the point end would do, if it would move. So I'm putting a little bit of force and seeing how that front end reacts.
Yeah.
And it was jumping a lot until I started to chop it down quite a bit. And then I would go and just, not glue in the weight or anything, just plug the point weight in, have it sitting, pluck it, and, just see what the point weight would do. And I just wanted to see if I could make that point sit still, under duress, if it would make my scores go up or if I'd hit the middle more. And it just happened, it did. You know,
Yeah,
I've
that's
talked to Bodie, one of his Vegas tournaments, he won the first one. Blade just happened. His arrows and rest just happened to be where the node was sitting. Happened to be on the arrows node. And with a recurve archer, that's more for fingers. That's more for recurve archery, like finger shooting and stuff. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's recommended or looked at on the compound side. Funny story is I actually did it for my hunting arrows. And I can't tell you how many arrows I broke, last year doing that. And ultimately, I just got away from it a little bit just to see if I could see a difference with it. And here's the kicker about this: when you're playing with all this stuff and you're doing all this testing, guess what you're doing more of that you probably don't do? Shoot your bow.
practice. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's what had, a lot of those findings for me. I just spent more time behind the riser, man. A lot of
Yeah.
this thing it's the wizard, not the wand, is one of my favorite
Yes.
sayings. So me being the wizard, I've got to make this wand work. The wand works, but I've got to make it work,
That's
that kind of stuff. But
so I've historically I've put very little effort into making my arrow setup, forgiving and tuning in my bow and all this stuff. Like I've really just focused all my time on the wizard, right? Me. And just this summer, before the Buckeye Classic, I did some pretty heavy tuning.
yeah,
I'm right with my arrows, my X10s, and it definitely opened up my eyes to that whole tuning world. And I will say it definitely made a difference. I went from just basically, paper tuning, and maybe I would do some bear shaft stuff out to 20, 30 yards, but that's about it. And then, with the X10, I started doing more stuff like group tuning, knock tuning, all of that, and I think it did make a difference. Now with indoor arrows, I don't really know the best way to tune them. Like you're talking about, the node on the rest. I really like that concept. That's something I might have to try out. But I mean, getting a indoor arrow to tune, I mean, what does that look like? Are you group tuning? Like I can't get my indoor arrows to go more than
I
40
think
yards.
yeah, no, I would score a game. This is what I would do. And I haven't done this yet. It's kind of something I'm going down like a little rabbit hole. So I'm going to start like a little content piece here soon. It's like shooting my first 300. I've never shot a 300. Shot a 299 at practice and a 97 at a league night, but I've never been ever consistent, at actually giving it a go. So that's what my goal is this year, is to truly give it a go and,
Yeah.
chase a 300, prior to getting to Vegas. But one thing that I'm going to focus on is really manipulating that rest. I think there's a lot that goes on in the placement of that rest on the bow relative to all the axes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I think that's where that forgiveness trait can be built in. I think there's other factors that can affect it as well: draw length, holding weight, stabilizer weight. There's so many X, Y's, and Z's. Oh my gosh, X not, B not. X not. All this other stuff you got going on.
Yeah.
I think when you mesh it all up, that's where the forgiveness comes, but you got to tackle it one piece at a time. So for me, like new 2712s that I'm going to build this year, I'm probably going to start them at 29 inches, and I'm probably going to start them pretty heavy in the front. So we have like a removable point system. So it starts out at 200 grains, just a bare point. You can throw in weights in the back, screw them in, and see. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start probably pretty light. I'm going to go shoot a game, see what they do. And truthfully, the game's probably going to suck. So I'll probably stay at there for a week with 200 grains in the front. The next week, what I'll do is I'll either, I'm probably just going to add more point weight, probably 50 grains to start off with, just see if anything increases. And I'm just going to keep track of these targets. And just the whole patterns is what I'm looking at. And if I put it to you like this, what if I have, a hole pattern that's like this, but it's, on the 9-10 line? I'd rather have something like that than, like an X hole like this, something that constantly. All I'm just going to do is move my sight and, get it going.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm looking for. And if I find out the tees don't shoot any better, then I'm like, okay, so we're probably going to be less than 250, or I'm probably going to trim my arrow, a little bit. Basically, I've got this arrow almost too weak, essentially, for the setup. And then I'll start trimming down, or I could go the inverse way. I could actually, decrease the poundage, take a quarter turn out of the limb pockets. So many people are afraid to do that, and talking with Joel, Bodie, what they'll do, they've actually got, I can't even reveal, I don't even want to reveal their secret. They play around a little bit, with the limb pockets.
I do too.
There's a lot of field archers that do the same thing. And truthfully, I think the field archers are the best on the planet. If you can go out there and win a world field championship, you are lethal in every discipline of archery, I think.
Yeah.
From indoor to outdoor, whatever it might be, 3D. World field championships separate, archers, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I've honestly, like, I've heard of all this stuff, all these arrow tuning methods, bow tuning methods, and for me, no matter what I do, it always seems to be, as long as I've got a bow that is paper tuned and there's nothing crazy going on, and then once I get my pin holding right, so if I'm getting, dips and rises in my pin, I'll tweak certain things and get it to where, as long as it's holding pretty good and everything is close to being tuned, then typically I shoot fine. If I miss, if it is, to the right side of the X, or maybe it's a high 9, low 9, whatever it is, typically that's just where my pin was. Like, for me, I've never been able to say,
Same.
arrow number 1 consistently hits to the right. And I've never been able to say, like, this arrow setup doesn't group as good as this other one. I will say that I've had arrow setups that are easier to tune than other ones. Some of them I cannot get to shoot a bullet hole, or maybe I can see them going down through the air doing crazy stuff, which in some cases I guess that's okay. But I've really never been able to tell to an extent that this tune is better than this tune, which is where, like, I feel like if I shot different rounds, like you're saying, start the first week with 200 grains up front and then bump it up to 225 or whatever it is, I feel like if I was getting better scores with the 225, that could very well be me, or just, whatever's going on in my head, than the arrow. I don't really trust myself to be able to, find that good setup. Like, right now, I've got like a half dozen X27 set up right now, and they've got like 300 grains up front, and I think they're 31 inches long at 60 pounds. And I actually shot them at full length for probably a week before I cut them down to 31. And I really didn't notice a difference, which sounds pretty crazy, in my head. And from what I've heard, that should make a significant difference. But I really haven't noticed. I'll shoot a 300 with X's, and I'll shoot a 20X and a 26. And it seems like, for me, my round is dependent on what's going on in my head. Like, I've not cracked the arrow code yet. I think that's my issue.
Well, I don't think that you're 100% headed down the right track. So let's say if you're averaging that 26, 27 X's. So there's 3 X's in there that we're not hitting. Are we not hitting because it's, between my ears? Were those shots, are we taking notation of, was my shot, was I thinking differently? Was the words I'm saying, were they not the same? Was it not in the same rhythm as my not in the same cadence or something? Did I hold longer? The rhythm and everything like that plays a role into it. Can you track those shots? What end is it? Is it consistent on, the last arrow of the 7th end, the 6th end, or whatever it might be? Those little minute details. And that's, honestly, Mason, I think that comes with months of practice. Like, you're going to find there's something in there that's causing that, whether it's mental or it's on the equipment side. That could be just it's a little bit tighter. Is your center serving, too tight for your knocks or too loose? Those minutia, that minutia really is what it comes down to. You're just string stretching. Are you losing holding weight and not realizing it? Those kinds of things. Is my blade rest wearing out? There's so many like little things with it. But I think when you're getting on the cusp of that 26, 27, 20X, I think a lot of it's mental more than anything. And the only reason why I say that is there's that wall, is what they say. And I've never experienced this. I'm just coming from I'm coming not from an experience standpoint, just from the information I get to gather,
Hmm.
kind of say. One of the walls is like shooting the first 300. Once you do it, it's more repetitive. You can constantly
Yes.
do it. Once you start getting there, then you get guys that focus on their X count more. So like me, my highest X count's like 14 or 15 X's, or like at a league night. And I think like 16, at practice is like my like records that I keep, and goal is what I've heard is to chase the X's. Don't chase the score yet. Just keep chasing the X's. When the X count rises, the score rises naturally. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what I focus on. I think after, that threshold of like, let's shoot a 28 game today. Let's see if I can hit a 28 game X. Once you start knocking down those barriers, but again, the constant is you're shooting more. You're shooting with intent, with a purpose, you could
Yeah.
say. And I think when people's concentration levels rise, scores are going to rise. And I've just seen that with me, happen with me.
Yeah. I can, after right now where I'm at, I kind of put a lot more time into things other than target shooting for probably from, I don't know, I couldn't even give you a time frame. But then a few weeks ago, I started putting a lot more time back into target shooting and was really having some meaningful practices. I had a goal to work on this one thing during that practice. And I mean, I could get up there and when I'm focusing on maybe that day, I want to focus on my, leg placement. I want to make sure that every single shot, my legs and hips are all aligned perfectly. Well, when I'm focusing on that, I really kind of let the mental game go in the back seat. So I'm just shooting arrows and I can shoot a 25X like that all day. And I feel like, um, that is kind of a mediocre score for me at least. And when I look back at the shots that I missed, I know exactly what happens. It's always the pin comes out of the center. And my pin hold is with this new bow, it's totally different. I won't even try to explain the new bow. But with the old bow, the pin hold will do something like this. And eventually, with visual proprioception, like Joel Turner says,
There you
I
go.
could
Yeah.
just put it in the middle and it would go. If I started looking at the pin and seeing what it was doing, it would start moving a lot more and just stuff like that. But I think that when I lock in and I focus on that mental game, try to get everything right, I can shoot a, 28X pretty easy. I think last night I shot a 28X and it felt pretty effortless, I'll say. I was in a groove.
And here, yeah.
I was getting that rhythm like you were saying. Every shot was the same timing, everything was right. And then, I'd miss one. I think it was on the fifth end, and then I missed another one on the seventh end, maybe.
Mhm.
And I think it was just mental failure is what it was. I did not run my pre-shot routine, or I forgot to do something, and typically, that results in a miss. That's kind of what I found for mental game. Now I haven't shot under pressure for a few weeks at least. It's been a while since the last tournament. Of course, everything shuts down for hunting season, or most of the things around me at least.
Mhm.
But I'm interested to see once we get through hunt season here,
Yeah.
what I can do. In tournaments and stuff. I've always been pretty strong, I think, under pressure. But I'm really gonna hone in on it this year. Put that pan on my head, as Brady would say.
100%. I think that's the common denominator. Excuse me. I need some caffeine. That's the common denominator in the people that get on the podium and the people that don't. And what I mean by that is how tough they are between the ears. The furthest distance you're ever going to shoot is 6 inches, and that's from ear to ear. If you can master that, then you can go on and you can shoot really well. Are you going to be the next Mike Slosher? Who knows? The thing that Mike has done is mastered the head game, the 6 inches between his ears, and then the thousands of hours that he's got behind the bow. So I think it goes in that order. It's how many reps are you? They say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. And I think that's true at everything you do. And we see it. It's not like any of these guys are, overnight successes like the Matthias's of the world. People that are just starting to hear Matthias prior to his Vegas win, Matthias picked up a bow when he was like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Matthias has 16 years. I think Matthias is 21, 20.
Wow.
He's got 16 years behind the bow. Mikey the same way, 3. Bodie, 2. I've seen pictures of Bodie at a year and a half, like his mom showed me, with a stinking toy bow and string.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen videos of the kids shooting balloons out of the air in the kitchen. Like, these are not, none of these people are overnight successes by any means. It's the thousands of hours in the discipline. Discipline carries you when motivation won't.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
there's been a lot of times where, dude, I've talked to Mike. We actually did a recorded podcast a couple months ago. It should be coming out here soon. And it talks about Mike, he lets you know that he's human in a sense. When COVID struck down, Mike was not motivated to pick up the bow, talking to him. It was literally the discipline that kept him, COVID was kind of like a reset for him in a sense. Like he got like a mental check. Like it started to
Yeah.
sit off, it started to get things going for him again. And Mikey, if you go back and look at his tournament history, man, there ain't many tournaments where he hasn't walked away with some hardware checks, you know.
Yeah.
But he is always shooting. Same thing with Bodie, always shooting. Matthias, Jimmy, Stefan, always shooting, always spending time, hours a day behind the riser.
Yeah. So I really haven't spent as much time with some of those guys as you have. I mean, what's that personality type that there's got to be some kind of similarity there, some sort of mindset, discipline that those guys have, or those guys, develop that skill that allows them to motivate themselves to go to the next level. Like that's got to be some sort of something there that drives them. Have you noticed anything like that?
Well, they want to be the best. I mean, they're simple. They're all good buddies. But man, tell you what, I feel like I'm the same way, man. When I played baseball, I wanted to play at a very high level. After high school, it just didn't happen. But man, when I was on the mound, I came there. I didn't care if you were my mom. I'm there to sit you down. You're going to return to the bench, whether I rely on my infielder out or if it's just me and the catcher, and you're going to swing and miss. You're going to whiff. And I think all of those guys have that same mindset. Is I'm coming up here to saw you down and take home a check, and represent my brand, represent the brands that support me. And I think that's the mentality. You can't be one of the best ways, like one of the best analogies is that I like to use. So I kind of I'm into like the whole powerlifting thing. I'm not like a competitive person or anything like that. I just want to be strong in a sense. There are times when I'm at the gym, like, everyone's very nice and stuff, but you cannot be a nice person when there's pressure on you. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like you have to get into a place where you need to be either completely turned off and numb to what's going on, or you have to embrace it and grit through it. That's the only two options, I think.
Yeah.
Talking with these guys, like I've had the pleasure of shooting with Jimmy and Stefan, at Reading. And man, when it gets down to the wire, we know when to shut up. You know what I'm saying? There's a very different tone
Yeah.
in that group real quick when someone's on the spectrum of greatness, and the other times walking to the targets and stuff, we're very chillaxed, joking, having fun, having a good time. But when it's go time, buddy, they know how to turn it on. And I think that's what separates anyone, a winner from a loser. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is the champions from, second and third place, from
Yeah.
even the people that don't even get on the podium, it's the mindset that they carry from the time that release is hooked onto that D loop to the arrow hits the target. That it's a constant repetition of that and, maximizing that thought process.
Yeah. I really like that. And I've never really thought of it that way, but um I relate this to one competition that I do outside of archery. So through my high school, we have a FFA chapter, like the VOAG department, and through FFA, we've got like a lot of these outside of school
Oh, you there,
competitions,
brother?
and it all has to do with agriculture. And like the probably one of my favorite competitions we do is forestry. So you basically go into the woods. You have to know all these different things about trees. You have to be able to use the tools and
Hmm.
measure all this stuff. It's pretty complicated. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to learn, and there might be 300, 350 kids from around the state that do this competition. And actually, just the other day, we found out that I had won the state competition individually for the second time. And when I go to that
Congrats.
competition, it's exactly kind of like what you're saying. For me at that competition, I just turn everything off. When we're standing around a tree measuring its trunk, and there's a couple different people there, timid. I'm not, letting everybody else go first. No, it's as soon as that guy's done, I'm stepping up and I'm getting my measurement and I'm getting out of there. It's that game face. I think one thing that Dad always says to me before I go shoot at a competition, or maybe it's the night before, he'll say, make them want to go ice skating. Make them want to put down the bow and go start ice skating or something like that. He said that's the kind of mindset you have to have when you're competing and shooting. You're not there to I'm you're not there to be mediocre. You're there to win. And I guess there's plenty of people there to have fun, but for me, having fun means winning, right? And obviously, I've lost a ton too, and I still have fun. The reason why I had fun was because I had the intent to win. I think that, kind of rephrasing what I just said, I think that having the intent to win is what makes it fun for me. But yeah, I do that with just about everything I do. I always try to have an intent to win, and that's what makes things fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same. It's anything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting a little
Sorry, you froze on me for a second.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of lag here. Is it all good now?
Looks like I've got a connection issue. Can you see me and hear me good?
I can see you and hear you good. It looks like everything is reading out all
You're a little
right.
choppy.
Really?
Perfect. That's better. That's a little bit
Is that
better.
better? All right, perfect. I can just edit that out. Where'd I leave you off at?
A little bit. It's like in and out.
Really? Do you think it's me or you? Is it choppy
You there?
again? Yeah, I got you. I can see
Uh,
you okay.
you're just a little choppy. Let me see. I might have to check my internet. It says I'm connected. All right. Is that better?
Yep, that seems a little bit better. Yeah, I just ran a speed test on my
Let me
internet. I should
try.
be good.
It's just a little glitchy. Really? Let me see. Let me check. Let me see if I can go to this.
Yeah.
Let me try this. All right. Is that? Let me see. Talk for me real quick.
Can you hear me all right? Is everything synced up?
Yep, I can hear you much better. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go with that internet. There's like 5 different deals on here. But yeah, no, I mean it's the same thing. I think it's with everything you do, man. If you're trying to be competitive, I think you gotta, know when to separate those two people, the nice guy and the competitive person. That's just me. And I want to be able to turn that on. Me, I'm not good enough to turn on that mean guy, in archery. I can do it when I'm, squatting something or deadlifting or benching, but with a bow, I've got to learn to channel that in and get good first before put that person in the game. But yeah, man, like kind of even, kind of going back to all that stuff about setting up the arrows and everything. I think when you get those 10,000 hours in, I think that's where all of it really comes in together. And you could tell the difference in a half-inch cut, from a shaft and added 50 grains from a shaft and what a pound more or pound less holding weight, might do. I think that's where all of those metrics will kind of come into play and mesh together and you'll be able to really, definitely know what you need to do.
Absolutely. I think that when I started archery, I was changing stuff in my form and my setup every single week. I would shoot every Tuesday night, and then I'd shoot several days in between Tuesday nights, and I was always changing stuff every single week. I don't think I went 2 weeks having the same setup. And it wasn't till this indoor season, this previous one, that I really stopped changing stuff. And, I would go a couple weeks without changing anything. And that's when I think I would start to notice those differences. And really, I have not shot the exact same shot for a long period of time since probably the Buckeye Classic. I've changed a decent amount since then. But I think that this indoor season, that rate of change is really going to taper out a little bit, and I'll be able to focus on things other than myself, like my arrow setup. I'll be able to realize and see what's really happening there. Let's talk about your lifting. So you got a new Instagram, Beards, Bows, and Barbells. Is that right?
You there? Sorry, my connection's still sloppy.
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
The internet's slow, buddy. Yeah, I think the internet's slow. I got some of what you were saying, Mason. So the page, I can hear you better now.
Okay.
Yep. I got some of what you were saying about the page. I just wanted to have something to segregate, my personal life with me and my wife and my family, from the activities I enjoy doing. And I got to give that page a little bit more commitment. And what I mean by that is I'm at a very unique position, here to, get all this information and like, oh, what is so and so doing with their stuff? Is this they found success this way? And they share all that anyway, but if I could be a little bit different of a funnel and help someone out in that regard. And I'm no slum when it comes to the arrow stuff. I'm dangerous is what I like to say.
Yeah.
There's some people that I have, at my disposal, and I mean that in the most respectful way possible, like a George Tekmachov or like a Steve Anderson or someone like that.
Yeah.
or a freaking Josh Kennedy or Dylan Pond or Zach Benson, these engineers here, man, we are dangerous. Like those guys are lethal. I'm dangerous just because I know
Yeah.
enough to get me in trouble. Those guys are lethal in the sense of they know arrows better than anyone else in the world. And I will put them head to head against respectfully. There's some really good people that know a lot, a plethora more than I would say I do about arrows. But the knowledge, the tribal knowledge here at Easton is insane. Like absolutely insane. The stuff you get to know, see, stuff that you got to keep to yourself, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's all really cool. But honestly, that page just is kind of to track my journey. Honestly, what I'll do is I'll upload a video, I get to delete it off my phone, save some storage from the photo and the video vault.
Yep.
That's primarily like Instagram's use for me. And then at the other time, I wanted to really understand more of the social media aspect as far as the algorithms and stuff. What people are really tuned into, and that kind of helps with my job here. So it allows me to play. Where I don't really want to play on the Easton, archery account on Instagram and do all
Yeah.
these little things. Like I'd rather be able to, be my own little test dummy and be able to carry over those results to those social media pages and grow the brand that way.
Yeah. And I've been posting just about every day since July, and it has made I've really started taking a lot of this social media stuff a lot more seriously, and I've definitely learned a lot of stuff. There is a lot to learn there, and I think having a little test account, like you're saying, could definitely be useful. I guess right now, just launch one. That's my test account. That's my real account. I just do anything and everything on there. But yeah, that's really cool. Lifting, barbells, you said squat, bench press, all that. I do not necessarily a whole lot of lifting, but I like to stay healthy. I like to eat a good diet. I like to do all that stuff. But what does your routine look like on that? Yeah, you're lagging out here pretty bad. I can't even hear you.
Can you hear me?
There we
Can
go.
you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. So my diet's kind of like all over the place, man. I try to eat somewhat clean, but my wife's a really good cook, and like last night I had some pizza. It was sourdough bread pizza. She made it. It was some mozzarella, some pepperoni on it. So it's not too bad, But my routine is I try and squat and bench and deadlift, twice every not 14 weeks or 14 days. It's like every 10 to 12 days. So I get a little bit more volume, a little bit more work in there. And ultimately, I do want to step on that platform, one day. Next year is my goal. And then that'll transition. There's some things, unfinished business that I did years ago that I never finished. Like I wanted to wanted to get into the bodybuilding side of things, over a decade ago. Yeah, over 12 years ago, actually. And got close to stepping on stage, got 8 weeks out and called it quits. And that's one thing that sticks me. It just kind of nags in the back of my brain, like, oh, you've quit. The people that quit, what does it say on my phone? This is one of my favorite quotes. If I quit, it's like me looking God in the face and saying, I didn't trust you to deliver,
Yeah.
So that's always haunted me.
Yeah.
And
I really like that.
so after the whole powerlifting things, it's gentleman I know, his name's Lorenzo Roybal, said that at a convention I was at. And you want to talk about striking you in the chest? That's what that did. And so I got some unfinished business there, and that'll be probably another 2 to 3 years before I get to the place physically wise that I'd want to be able to step on stage. It's going to be a lot of work. And then I'll probably cap it off with going to more of like a hybrid athlete. That's kind of the goal with that page is it's easiest to start off in the powerlifting thing because you're not too concerned about diet. You still have to be in a weight class. You still have to be strong in that weight class to perform well. But then your diet really matters, on the bodybuilding side of the thing. And then your fitness matters more than anything with that hybrid athlete, kind of like I wouldn't say like a CrossFit, but like a High Rocks, those High Rocks games that are going on right now. But just to be physically fit, honestly, that challenge would probably be there's something I've been wanting to do, like shouldn't say do. There's something that's been in my mind too. It's called the 666 challenge. And this is years away from doing. I'm nowhere near the shape. It's going to take me 5, 6 years to do if everything goes well. But it's a 6 minute mile, a 600-pound squat, and a 600-pound deadlift, all in succession with one another. And that's
Wow.
the epitome of strength and endurance. And there's only one gentleman I know that's done it. I don't know anybody else that's done it. And there's a guy I know right now. He could possibly do it. I think he'd be dang close to doing it. I know he's got the rundown, and his numbers. The guy used to be a powerlifter, and his
Mhm.
numbers are insane. He could be dang near close to doing it, I'd say. But
Yeah.
that's kind of where the page, it just came, it's just honestly just something to keep me held accountable, more than anything.
Yeah.
I think there's things that we all need to keep us accountable, held accountable in certain
Absolutely.
aspects.
So what's like the process? What's the process to reach those goals you're talking about? Like, what are you doing on a week to
Honestly,
week
man,
basis?
it's very mundane in a sense. I follow a little program, it's called Juggernaut, and all that it's a powerlifting program. It's a template program. Most people that are probably going to listen to this, they're into powerlifting. Oh, you're running a template. Yeah, I'm running a template because I'm not at nowhere near my peak or anything like that as far as strength goes to need a coach or anything. But it's I squat, bench, and deadlift, and then I have an accessory day. An accessory day, it's kind of like doing arms or shoulders. You're just training to get a pump or something like that. And then I take a rest day, and then I squat, bench, and deadlift again. And all those days they coincide with certain percentages of my max, of what my relative max is. Like this, I think it's, yeah, this next squat session, I have to hit, my last set has to be 485 with 5 reps minimum. So I have to leave it kind of all in the tank. So we'll probably shoot for, 8 to 10, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And then we reassess for the next week. So we get some kind of new numbers to train off of, that following week. And it's a little thing called like progressive overload is what we're doing. We're slowly, linear progression actually is what it is, with progressive overload kind of building into it. But yeah, I just follow a program. I think that's the easiest thing to do for anybody. Just follow a little program, stick with it, and you're going to get results. I mean, there's the programs, they've gotten everybody in the world results that stuck to them.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, as far as diet wise, most of what I do is just minimizing carbs, which is probably different
Smart.
from what you would do powerlifting and stuff. Is that right? Like what's an ideal diet for you? Like do you have something like that structured at all?
Yeah, to a degree. So I'll give an example. 3 years ago, when I kind of got into this, cycle of wanting to strength train and stuff and train heavier than usual, I followed a diet called the vertical diet, and it's a it's a micronutrient diet is what it really is. So there's certain foods that you kind of stay away from. It's all gut based and stuff. It's trying to, help you process and digest foods and everything. But truthfully, man, white rice is like a staple. I eat white rice every single day, and red meat. I eat red meat every single day. Like those are, if there's any two consistents, and eggs. I eat eggs every day.
Yeah.
And I have a protein chicken I eat every single day, with milk. Those are probably my most constants. I throw in some chicken in there every now and then. Truthfully, back when I was doing the whole bodybuilding thing, wanted to do that. I ate so much chicken, dude, I had to gag it down. I just had to drown myself in water to swallow. It was not healthy whatsoever what I was doing, mentally for me anyway. But red meat, milk, eggs, white rice, those are definitely the staples. I eat a lot of steak and a lot of ground beef. And that's kind of what that vertical diet really calls for. And I kind of salt my food. I season it. I don't sit there and eat bland stuff. And then, every now and then I'll throw in some stuff like I had some ice cream last night. A lot of it, just enough to satisfy, a sweet tooth craving. Mainly, that's truthfully that's a lot of what I eat. It's just white rice and ground beef. Now I do need to lose a couple pounds, so I'll probably slowly start down and you know minimalizing those carbs and slowly start taking away from that red meat and adding more chicken
Yeah.
in there just because it's leaner, and just kind of get that caloric, intake down. And then the deficit, truthfully, is what's going to cause me to lose weight. So I'll probably do some more cardio and stuff. Do get on the Stairmaster and, do a couple of, an hour, maybe an hour and a half a week of, of some of that. And then the, the it's called GPP, General Preparedness Training
Mhm.
is what it is. And it's just, dragging a sled and stuff like that, kind of doing something a little bit more intense,
Yeah.
cardio wise. That's going to kind of help me taper down on the weight. But you got to do that all while trying to maintain that strength. And that just surely comes with training the central nervous system more than anything, to be able to accommodate the loads. And, the muscle's going to build to support that kind of stuff in due
Yeah.
time. But that's the constants: white rice, protein shake, ground beef. Don't be afraid to throw a cheeseburger in there, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good. I think that no matter what diet you have, no matter what it is, even beyond diets, archery, mental game, I think as long as you got those constants, that's going to put you a lot farther ahead versus being, I don't know if whimsical is the right word, but just, letting it happen versus planning it out. I think planning it out is definitely best. But to wrap it up here, what is I mean, what's a message to take away from what we've talked about today? We've talked about competitive stuff, mental game, we've talked about arrows. What is something that somebody listening to this can take out of this and make their next shooting session, lifting session better?
Man, consistency I think just kills at the end of the day. Consistency owns every realm of aspect of life in your life. It owns consistency is king. I don't think anyone's gotten any worse at doing whatever they do as long as they're consistent with something and just trying to, achieve, a certain percentage better, every single time. Another quote is, if you're 1% better every day, man, you're 365% better from the time you started.
Yeah,
Doing the math, baby steps will take you up a mountain. I mean, if you're 0.3% better every single day, you're still dang near 103, 106% better, at the end of the year, which is still insane to think about over a year.
yeah,
Honestly, one thing I just try to have a small win every day. At work we call it eating frogs. Frogs are not the things that you don't want to mess with. It's an email that like you're at, it's you want to send it out. It's just you got so much going on. It's signal versus noise is the biggest.
yeah.
What is your signal? Everything else is noise. Focus on the one signal. Get rid of the noise.
Yep, absolutely. I love it. That's great advice. Perfect, Cody. Well, I really
Yep.
appreciate the talk today. Learned some good stuff. Had a good talk.
Welcome, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, looking
Yes,
forward
indeed.
to doing it again, and
Yeah,
hopefully we
man.
can do
We'll
an
have to
in-person
recap at
podcast.
ATA. Yeah,
Yeah,
ATA, man. That'd be great. We'll go down and get some lunch somewhere, and I'll make sure I got my white rice and my red meat or something like that.
yeah, perfect. Awesome. Hey, I appreciate it,
Awesome, bud.
Cody. We'll see you on the next one.
You're very welcome.